Hi everyone, I'm Saul with MyFi Journey. It is Friday, June 11th, 2021, and I'm looking to be financially independent by December 2026. In today's video, I wanted to go into the topic of savings, and specifically the order of savings and what to start setting money aside for. In my last video, I talked about my first experience working with a financial advisor and how for the most part it didn't work out for my wife and me back then. The one good thing that came out of that is that I learned I needed to start keeping track of our cash flow, or in other words, create a budget. Before I continue, I want to thank everybody for their comments, and I also want to invite you to subscribe to my channel if you are finding this information useful, so that you get alerted once I put out a new video. And feel free to share with your friends and family if you believe the information will be helpful for them. Now, a budget is very important not only to define how much you can save, but it also helps you understand your spending habits, which you can modify if you are still working to get out of debt. It helps you understand how much money comes in, how much money goes out, and how much is left. Now, my first attempt at creating a budget failed miserably. You see, I didn't really put the effort in figuring out my actual expenses or net tech home pay. Instead, I just threw in numbers that sounded right. But man, were they wrong. According to my guesstimates, I should be able to save about 10K per year, but it turned out I had nothing saved anywhere. So where was that money going, right? I very vividly remember my wife asking me, yeah, where is that money going? So from that failed attempt to create a budget, I then put in a conscious effort to do it right. So here's what I did. First, I took a look at my last 2 months of paychecks, and being that I was salary employee, both of them, had the same take-home pay. So it was easy for me to come up with my net monthly home pay. I then took a look at 3 months worth of statements, both on my checking account and my credit card bill. And then I separated my expenses into the following categories. Housing, whether it was mortgage or rent, utilities, car payments, insurance, food, whether it was groceries or eating out, personal care such as gym, haircuts, etc., clothing, and then other. And what I made sure was I put my fixed expenses first, like mortgage or rent, car payments, and utilities, or at least the average of the utilities, which between my wife and I were pretty consistent overall. I mean, electricity was higher during the summer, but the low gas consumption in summer evened that out. So it worked out. And then I put those expenses that didn't really follow a pattern, such as food, clothing, personal care, and others. Now, to my discovery, I had a lot of expenses in the others category, which eventually turned into specific categories such as home repairs, online purchases, streaming services, and then others. So to us, this was really eye-opening. We were spending more than we were expecting on stuff we'd buy through sites like Amazon. But at least now we knew how much money was actually coming in and how much of that we were spending. And it turned out that those 10K I was supposed to be able to save based on my initial guesstimates was actually going towards stuff that we were shopping online. So the reason I recommend taking 3 months worth of expenses is because you will have variations from month to month in some of the categories specifically. So you want to take an average of them. Once you have this in place, you will know if you're spending more than you are netting or if you have some money left over. Now, because I already made a video about getting out of debt, and because this video is about savings, we're going to start discussing where would you put that extra money left off every month to start saving. And this is independent if you want to retire, early or become financially dependent, or if you're going to wait until you're 65. So first, you need to get an emergency fund. And I recommend making that at least $1,000. Now, why $1,000? From my personal experience, when I was in my 20s, recently married, I was trying to be as cheap as possible. And an example was paying the least amount possible for car insurance. And that came with a $1,000 deductible. And as it turns out, I have been in a few car accidents, none of them my fault. But while the police and insurance claims were going through, I needed my car repaired as soon as possible so I can keep commuting to work. So I was able to pay that $1,000 deductible from my emergency fund. Now, as I mentioned before, everyone's situation is going to be different. For some, an emergency is going to be $2,000. For others, it may only be $500. The important thing is to have that emergency fund readily available where you can grab it from a drawer, within an hour's notice. Once you have that 1,000 emergency fund, then I recommend you get a 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside in either a savings account or money market, something that you can get access within a week's worth of time. And I call this the rainy day fund. Now, since you made your budget using 3 months worth of statements, you should know by now how much you're going to be needing for those 3 months of expenses, shall that need arise. And if you can save double that amount, you should be covered for the 6 months of being able to pay all your bills, in the event that you're unable to work and stop receiving a paycheck, whether it's because you got fired or you were in an accident. And it's going to give you the ability to focus on getting better and back to work or a new job or figure out what to do to start generating income again and not have to immediately worry about paying your rent and mortgage, for example, and on top of the other bills. So once you reach this point, look at your retirement account contribution, 401ks, your IRAs, your Roth accounts. If you do a search on what the average amount in a retirement account for somebody 65 or older, you're probably going to find different amounts. The ones that I found where average is around $360,000. However, the median is only $126,000. Either of those amounts may not be enough depending on your lifestyle or your medical needs or future emergencies. So it's imperative that you begin contributing to retirement as soon as you can. Also, most employers offer some type of match on your 401k contribution. So if this is the case, make sure that you contribute at least enough to get the maximum employer contribution. That's free money that's going to grow within your retirement account. So once you start adding money into your retirement accounts, and hopefully you're maxing out the contribution, then I strongly recommend you revise your emergency fund. And these steps will take a few years to complete, right? So by the time you start being able to max out of your 401k, your living situation might have changed. Maybe your kids, if you had any, are now of driving age, and now your insurance deductible grew or has the potential to increase now that your expenses have also grown a bit to inflation or other life events. So revise both the emergency fund and the rainy day funds or the 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. And then finally, once you have all of that in place, you can start thinking about investing. Now, my rule and recommendation is that when you plan to start investing, you do it with additional money. And what I mean by that is don't use your emergency fund, don't use your rainy day fund, and don't stop contributing to retirement accounts to allocate money to investing. I started investing at the wrong time and with the wrong money. I can't remember the exact year, but I decided to invest in a specific company stock after a friend mentioned that someone from work told him that this company stock was expected to grow to double the current price in a few months. So at that time, I was working towards my 3 to 6 month rainy day fund, and I only had saved about $5,000 towards that. Well, I found it very tempting, right, to use those $5,000 and buy as many shares as I could of this promising company stock. Now, the first problem is I used the money that wasn't intended for investing. It was intended for my rainy day fund. And the main issue was that the money you invest should be money you are not planning on using for at least 7 to 10 years. Because of that, I let emotions guide my decisions when the stock dropped to the point where those $5,000 turned into $3,000. I obviously panicked because A, I had no idea how the stock market worked, and B, I just saw my rainy day fund go down. So I ended up selling all the shares at a loss and ended up spending more time funding my rainy day fund. So please, 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 if you are planning to start investing, make sure that it's not at the expense of your other saving buckets. Now, I'm not a financial planner or advisor, so I cannot recommend to you what to invest in. I did make a video a few weeks ago where I indicated what I'm investing on right now, but in no way that's a recommendation to invest on the same things. please make sure you start learning about the market, strategies, etc., before you decide to invest in a specific company or a fund or ETF or whatever. Don't do what I did initially. First, investing money that was destined for another purpose, and second, investing because someone at work with, that worked with a friend, mentioned that the stock was going to double their value in a short period of time. I hope this information is useful to you. If you do find it useful, please give it a thumbs up. That helps others get this video in their YouTube feed. And please subscribe to my channel so you get alerted when I post the next video. I also love to hear from you, so please comment on what topics you would like me to further discuss. For the next video, I'm going to go over the current investments that I'm focusing on and what my next holdings will be on and why. So stay tuned and see you all next week.